Breathe profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even billions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the God's beauty.
Good afternoon. So here we are on day 3 of Rahatsu. Aren't we just lucky? Like here we are with the time and the health and the energy to take time to sit in the Zendo, commemorating Shakyamuni's awakening while we work on our own. The fortune of that is just overwhelming to me sometimes. So I hope it is for you too. We have our Shokan initiation tied into this week on purpose as we think about the Buddha's awakening and working on our own and in such close contact with each other and with our teachers, and at the same time totally by ourselves. And we have new Shokan students getting initiated this weekend and more starting their initiation year. 11 total, probably, between the two groups. It's tremendous. And it's a big commitment. You know, we sign a covenant about it. It's that big of a commitment. Commitment to practicing with our teachers, and a commitment from them to share their practice with us. To me, there's an overwhelming amount of gratitude just in the fact that that exists and that we get to engage it heart to heart. And so our mission is our own awakening for the sake of all beings. And we have a lot of session to work on that. Today I want to share some of my own personal experience. And I also want to share a story out of the Pali Canon about that involves a student-teacher relationship and some tips for awakening. So, what does awakening mean? You know, I think it brings up different ideas for everybody at different times. When I was reflecting on that question this morning, it felt like a coming home kind of feeling. Like a home you didn't know before, but you know immediately that it is your home. I don't know if you've ever bought a house that way. My favorite houses in places we've lived, in places when you walk in and you're like, oh, this is my home now. The process of awakening kind of feels that way to me. And also, it's never done, right? Like we're always working on it, always being able to go deeper, being able to open more. It's such boundless work. And I think sometimes we think of it in terms of, that Kensho experience, that maybe that what we imagine to be some kind of peak moment, where everything comes together and when we have arrived. And our teachers will be very quick to tell you that that's just the beginning. There's so much effort and commitment and steadfastness needed to come back down that mountain and integrate and practice it and embody it, right? And so that's why we're all here so regularly, working so diligently and with such joyful effort. And when I think about the role that Shoken and Sesshin has in that process, to have a structure to hold it. I mean, you have a Kensho experience, and what do you do with that by yourself? It's like, that's weird. I guess I'll go to work, or whatever the next thing on the day was, right? Like, what are you really going to do with that without encountering a teacher who can guide you and help you with that and make it into something very usable and of benefit to all beings? So I just keep, every time I think about this and have been reflecting on it, I just keep coming back to this immense gratitude, this gratitude that can't even be expressed in words enough. I know one time I asked Rinzin Roshi, like, how do people ever repay this, And he just said, we just practice, right? We practice, and that's all we can do. And so there's kind of there's this emptiness, right, of the student, the teacher, the Dharma, that's just so beautiful. And then in Sesshin, everything is set up to support this, every little thing, our food, where we can sleep, what time to do what thing, all set up so we can drop everything aside and just give this time and give our hearts and our minds to the project of awakening. And then when we do have these direct experiences and we have a container to work with it and we have a structure to work with it and we have teachers to guide us, you know how when you read about these things, you read a book and it makes so much sense, and while you're hearing the talk, it makes so much sense. The teisho, a teacher's giving a teisho, and then it kind of goes away sometimes. You forget, right? And that's so much different than our direct experiences because we don't forget those, especially when we have support for them. Our direct experiences we don't have to remember because they are us. And they transform us. I mean, that's been my experience. It's like there's nothing to forget or remember. It's actually, it to be the case. And I know that we've all experienced this kind of transformation in different ways. Last Sunday, Doan Roshi and I were having lunch with some of the Jukai class of 2022. And Roshi asked them a question of, what have they noticed in the last 2 years that's changed since they took the precepts? And the answers were so beautiful. They were so honest and clearly transformative. And when you think about how everybody goes out into the world with those changes, and that just ripples out, it's beautiful. Joan Sutherland, in a book called Through Forests of Every Color. I don't know if anyone's read that book, but it's really very nice. She talks about the feeling life of awakening and how in the process of awakening, how we relate to our feelings changes. We still have all the feelings, but we don't respond to them the exact same way anymore, right? So there's naturally less anger and greed and frustration when they do arise. They're coming up in this field that we've generated, and so we can respond differently to them, making more room for the ease and joy and courage that we need in our lives. So for me, this practice and this process of awakening and engaging it, and it's just, you feel this compassion that rises out of you, this ease and this fearlessness and this ability to just truly be ourselves with all the mess and all the chaos and all the struggle and the health and all the things, but just being able to be with it, right? Not adding any more suffering onto that. Being free of that just makes our lives so workable. I remember a few years ago, I asked Joanne, how you know if this is real, this process is real. And she said that it's real when it's easier to love people. And isn't that true? I think it's easier to love people because of how we practice with each other. It's easier to love each other, and it's easier to love ourselves. And then there's other feelings too, right? Like we're here at session and there's all kinds of feelings. And then, how about those feelings when you feel really stuck, right? Not necessarily like on your koan, but maybe that, but also like just really stuck in your life, stuck with some problem that seems overwhelming, whatever struggle we're having with our kids, with our families, with our friends. I think that's actually where that's actually getting to the edge of our practice, right? So really it's, yay, practicing really well on the edge. Yay. It should happen, right? Like we should get stuck. If you're never stuck, you're not really doing anything. So that helps me a lot when I feel very stuck, to just remember that, like that's actually doing it. Actually contacting that edge is doing the thing. And being stuck for a minute, a year, 10 years, it's still at that edge doing that thing, right? So, yay, we're doing it. So before I move on to this, this story that I want to go through, I just want to talk a minute about why we come to so much session. I mean, we have it every month, right? And this one is unique because everybody here is a Shokin student or initiate. But we have this every month, and I think about how Rinzai Roshi always says, like, you can't skip steps. Like, there's real stages in this. We can't skip. We have to go through all the parts of it. We have to engage it constantly. And we have to have this, this groundedness and samadhi that is so much easier to cultivate at session. And especially, touching in regularly with session. And, we used to count the days and require a certain number of days. And it turned out not as incredibly helpful. And now we just have, a guideline, try to come to 15 days of session a year. Like, that's a good goal. And like, I don't really even like the word goal with it, because we all want the same thing, and we all have to figure out how to make it work in our lives. And I just think it's amazing how we do that, how so many people are so committed to this that we actually make this work every month. Agree. And it takes a lot of people to make it happen, a lot of committed people. When I think about how our teachers have arranged their lives so that they brought this to us in this building and in this way, from that long history that I wasn't even a part of in person in any way, again, how can gratitude not well up and overflow? It's amazing. Okay, so I want to look at this story out of the Pali Canon. This is out of the, you could find this if you wanted to in the discourse, the numerical discourses. It's in the 9s, even though it's 5 plus 4. I looked for it in the 5s, but you had to add the other 4. It's in the 9s. All right, so this is a story about a student-teacher relationship. I picked it because it is kind of Shokan week, right? And this teacher, of course, happens to be the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. And the student happens to be his attendant. The student's name is Maggia. Maggia, yeah. All right, so here we are. Thus I have heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was staying at Kalika, which is a boggy place, as it turns out. It is boggy and a place of black worms. The name of the river means the place of black worms. It's a quagmire. That's a real thing. It's not just a bad situation. It's also like a piece of land, a quagmire. So the Buddha and his student are staying in a quagmire. All right. And at that time, the Venerable Maggia was the Buddha's attendant. Maggia went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and said to him, Bhante, I'd like to enter Junta village for alms. The Buddha said, please, Maggia, go at your convenience. Then the Venerable Maggia, having dressed himself in the morning and taking bowl and robe, entered Junta for alms. After, he went to the bank of the river Kimi. That's the Blackworm River. And while walking about here and there to stretch his legs, Maggia saw a pleasant and delightful mango grove. Seeing it, he thought, pleasant indeed is this mango grove, delightful indeed is this mango grove, because he's living in a quagmire. Seeing it, he thought, truly it is fit for a clansman who wishes to strive in meditation. If the Blessed One allows it, I shall return to this mango grove to strive in my meditation. And I just want to pause there, because I don't know if this is relatable to anybody else, but I have for sure been like, I got to fix up my space before I can do my zazen, or it's a very busy time in my life, I'm going to pick this back up later, right? We've all kind of, I think, I've seen a lot of smiles, so I think a lot of people maybe relate to this idea of like, I need a better setting, a better circumstance, a better life before I can do my practice. And also this impulse to be alone, right? He's actually thinking, I want to get out, I need to set up the scene where I'm in some kind of solitary situation, striving in my meditation. I don't know if that's relatable or not, but I also sometimes have that impulse. All right, so he decides he's going to ask if he can go to this mango grove on his own to strive in meditation. So he returns after the alms from Junta, and he says to the Buddha, well, first he bows and he sits down and he does the whole thing, and he tells him what had happened and says, if the Buddha allows me, I will go back to that mango grove to strive in my meditation. And the Buddha, who was just totally fine a minute ago with him going out for alms, says, no, we're alone, Maggia. Wait until another monk comes. Like, just let's chill here in the quagmire. And I think that, the Buddha's probably seeing that this isn't a great idea for Maggia, his student. He needs to be with him and in a community. So Maggia comes back a second time and says, sir, the Buddha is fully awakened and has nothing more to do, nothing that needs improvement. But I have. If you allow me, I'll go back to that mango grove to meditate. And the Buddha says, we're alone, Maggia. Wait until another monk comes. So Maggia comes back a third time, persistent. And the Buddha says, Maggia, since you speak of striving in meditation, what can I say? Please go at your convenience. And so just pausing here for a second, like Maggia is actually really earnest, right? He actually really wants to awaken, and he really thinks this is going to help him to go off by himself into this beautiful mango grove and get out of the quagmire and just go off on this solo trek and come to awakening. I mean, the Buddha did, right? Why not him? So the Buddha acquiesces. Maggia gets up from his seat, bows, respectfully circles the Buddha, keeping him to his right. Then he goes to the mango grove, finds the best spot, plunges deep into it, sits at the root of a certain tree for the day's meditation. And while he's meditating, shocking, he's beset by unskillful thoughts of sensual desire, ill will, and violence. So some hindrances there for him. The note in the sutra explains that these are all stemming from his past karma. He was, through many lives, his last life he was a king, and so he has all these sorts of, conquering thoughts and violent thoughts, and the riches that he had as a king and the sensual desires were many. So he struggles with it all day, and then he thinks, oh, how incredible, how amazing. I've gone forth out of faith, like the lay life, to homelessness, and I'm still harassed by these three kinds of bad, unskillful thoughts. So it wasn't the circumstance after all. Must have been coming from somewhere else. So he humbly goes back to the Buddha. And he tells him what happened. And of course, the Buddha already knew this is what was going to happen. He tried to not let him go twice. And I like that part though, because, right, like there's also this beautiful relationship where maybe he's a little worn down about the whole nagging thing, but also the Buddha is trusting Maggia to go out and have this direct experience for himself. Because sometimes we have to actually learn things the more difficult but experiential way. Often. For me, at least, often. Okay, so he tells the Buddha what happened, and the Buddha says, okay, Maggia, here's the thing. There are these 5 conditions that bring the full maturing of freedom of mind to one who is not fully matured, and it ripens the heart for awakening. What are the 5? The 5 are, first, spiritual friendship, which we've been talking about a lot lately, noble friendship, the Sangha. And the Buddha says, if you have that, if you have the noble friendship piece, what will follow is Dharma-centered conversation. So that's the second one, suitable conversation. And also, conveniently, considerate of the Buddha, he gives a little conversation topic list. You could talk about how little you desire, contentment, not socializing, arousing energy, ethics, wisdom, freedom, and the knowledge and vision of freedom. And so this is sort of compassion training with your friends, right? Having these good conversations. So if you have spiritual friendship, you will naturally have suitable conversation. If you have suitable friendship, you'll naturally have moral virtue. It's easier to practice the precepts with suitable friends and noble friends. And you'll also find zealous exertion available to you, because that's why we're here at session, right? We are able to do zealous exertion with our noble friends beside us. It is very hard to say for a week, I will go do session by myself under the mango tree, right? But here we hold each other, even without speaking the words. It's easier together. And there is a line in the sutra which I really like. Zealous exertion means not slacking off when it comes to developing skillful qualities. Not slacking off. And then finally, the sutra says, if you keep spiritual friends, you will find insight into impermanence, the wisdom of arising and passing away, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to the complete ending of suffering. So here we are at noble friendship again. just for the sake of knowing the 9 things, I also want to read the 4 other things just so we hear it, but I'm not going to talk about them. So after you've established those 5 things, you need to cultivate 4 more things. Abandonment of craving, metta practice, mindfulness of breathing to cut off thinking, and the perception of impermanence to the uprooting of the conceit of I am. So those are the 9. And then side note, Maggia, he did eventually attain Arhatship, but he also got fired and replaced by Ananda. So. Okay. So what I like about that story is how much it relates to our Shoken, right? There's a lot of trust in that relationship between Buddha and Maggia. I really splashed myself. And there's trust in Maggia's direct experience. There's this, I love how Maggia is so earnest in his request to strive for awakening, and then so humble to come back and be like, hey, you were right. That didn't work out for me. And the teacher just receives him. The Buddha just receives him right back and gives him some teachings. I think it just really reminds me of our relationships with our teachers. Have we all not played this out a few times? Some wonderful instructions are given. Okay, but I really need to do my way, my thing. We go try it. We come back. We say it didn't work. They say, well, here you are. Here's the instructions again. Here's the teachings. And this is like this boundless patience. I mean, can you even imagine? I can't really even imagine the boundless patience that our teachers have with us. And the generosity. I mean, that is the paramita of generosity. So thinking about this noble friendship some more, compared to social friendship, right? It's very different how we are in a social friendship versus a noble friendship. And then even among noble friendship, Bhikkhu Bodhi breaks this down into 3 kinds of noble friendship, actually. So we have our horizontal noble friendship, where we're friends with our peers, we support each other, and really have each other's backs, and are honest, incredibly honest with our noble friendships. And then there's a vertical noble friendship, right? And there's 2 kinds of this. There's noble friendship with you and your teacher. That's a very, very vertical friendship, right? It is the noblest, actually, of friendships. So much trust. There's a reverent factor to that very vertical friendship. There's an honesty that I've never found anywhere else. And we take it seriously. And our teachers take us seriously. I feel like there's an element of just the sacred in that covenant and in that relationship with our teachers. And then there's also vertical friendships where you are, where people are at different levels of training. They're not the teacher, but they're different levels of their training. And so then we have mentors that we can turn to, people who can help us. And that's what, Shoken is being a model of that practice. So when we're interacting with new members or folks taking Jukai, that's a form of that vertical friendship. And so we have to be very mindful about how we are in that relationship. When you're wearing the robe, people take that they understand that to be that you have that ability to help them in some ways, right? To model for them what's worked for you and how this practice has changed your life and how you practice in a regular way. And I feel, and in the Sangha, We often have to flow between these four kinds of friendships, like very fluidly. A lot of us have social friendships also, where we just enjoy each other's company. There's always that noble quality in it, but you don't have to have a social relationship with anybody to be a noble friend. You don't even have to speak. You can sit in the zendo in noble friendship. Harder in a social relationship to do that for a week. And so we have to be able to fluidly move through that, right? We don't have to have a social relationship with our teachers. That's a noble vertical relationship. So Norman Fisher outlines a list of qualities of a noble friend. And this is different. I mean, we've talked before about like the sutras outline 8 qualities of noble friendship. But I like the way he worded a few of these things. Your noble friends this is obviously transcending the social relationship. And these are people who are holding each other in the precepts. We have this as a foundation. This is the foundation of our relationship, as we share these precepts. We share this commitment to awakening. We share this ethical code. We share having taken refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the rest of it doesn't matter. I mean, think about some of the people you're friends with in the Sangha. You wouldn't be friends with them anywhere else without this incredibly unifying ground that we're all walking on together. And it's such a safe relationship, right? You're safe to fully be yourself in a noble friendship, whether vertical or horizontal. It's very safe. And we never look away, right? That's in our Shokin covenant. We will stay with it. We'll not look away. We don't back away from any situation or anything about that. We might have to have boundaries, but we still don't turn away. We still look and see it exactly as it is. And I think that's beautiful because that's just seeing the fullness, the perfection that's there exactly as it is, in total fullness and openness. And sometimes there's problems, right? Sometimes we don't. We have conflicts with our noble friends. We're in that tumbler, teachers like to use that analogy of the rock tumbler. All our sharp edges banging up against all the other sharp edges, smoothing down, slowly eroding, moment after moment, day after day, session after session. But there's a few things we can do in those moments that can help with those edges grinding on each other. One thing Rinzin has said, I've heard him say repeatedly, is be quick to apologize. We can talk about it too, but be quick to say, I'm sorry. And can we talk about it? Communicating the truth with tenderness and being able to discern when you don't feel tender and giving it a minute when possible. I think that's really important. It's really important in social friendships to do that too, but it's especially important in our noble friendships where we're really relying on each other in our practice. And of course, forgiveness and seeing the perfection in your friend. Seeing the perfection before speaking is very important. think what's so valuable about noble friendships is we can mess up so badly. And we do, right? Like we've all done this. We can really drop the ball or really hurt someone's feelings. But in the context of our practice, we actually can work with it because we have learned how to make things be workable, how to let them be workable. And I mean, and that's really what holds the Sangha together, right? Is that seeing the perfection in each other, that showing up relentlessly, being seen, letting ourselves be seen, seeing each other, trusting, and just having that open heart. And really, for me, it just all comes back to that gratitude to have a place to work on our awakening together, the noble friendships we have with our teacher and with each other, the container of this Sangha, the container of sesshin, to work on it by ourselves with our friends. So for the sake of all beings, may we practice harmony together, harmony within ourselves, harmony with each other. May we practice well for the rest of this session. May we practice fearlessly. And may we shy away from nothing. May it be so.
gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.